Land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience are some of the key topics that are being discussed and some of the key areas that are being worked on. Whether we are talking about government agencies, non-profits, environmentalists across the globe, and of course, the United Nations are working on some of these issues and giving it a lot of priority. Hence, it aptly makes sense that this is the theme for the World Environment Day 2024. So, we are again having discussions with our experts, somebody who's been on the field, worked with multiple agencies and people from across the globe, and of course, my mom, Uma. So, starting off with land degradation, can you paint a picture as to how this process happens, how a fertile land or a very green piece of land can eventually degrade and even go into desertification?
It happens on various, due to various accounts because of the climate, it could be. It's because of the human intervention. Our interventions have created so much of land degradation that we will see a little later on. And deforestation, we are creating that, and a lot of, wildfires that are happening for which we have no answers. We know we do not have a solution as of now. All this is pushing the land towards degradation, that is loss of the biodiversity over the land and inside the land. And also, loss of land is loss of livelihood. So every year, lot of land is going into, it is getting degraded because of all this. So it is a collective responsibility of all of us to protect and preserve the planet for future. That's why it is our land, our future. That's the theme. Yeah.
So those are some of the reasons. Of course, human intervention is one, and there are environmental aspects as well, which leads to it. But what is the impact of land degradation? I think we underestimate what is happening, but how does it impact, let's say, in terms of food security or even in terms of natural disasters, which are increasing in number? What is the impact of this?
The main impact is soil loss. If you lose the soil, how can you cultivate? Okay. So one is soil loss, and then your deterioration of the quality of the water that we are drinking. So that is a very scarce resource, as we know. We have just seen Delhi going dry. Previously, we saw Bangalore going dry. So we are seeing this happening, but still we have to put our attention more, become more aware and put our attention. Biodiversity loss within the soil and above the soil. See, 60% of these species live in the soil, and 95% of the food is produced from the soil. Now you can estimate if there is soil loss, what is going to happen. You got my point. So, and degradation of the entire ecosystem. As you know, sometimes back, I was also involved in the, eco restoration of the wetlands. A little bit we did. It's not such a big project. A small little opening how to restore the wetlands. So like this eco restoration, all this will happen only when human interventions are again in a reverse manner. You have to engage with the nature.
So when we talk about, particularly when it comes to food security, and how have you seen in your experience land degradation impact the way in which the agriculture is done or the way in which the produce is being yielded? What is the impact when it comes to food production?
See, on one hand, the farmer is so ignorant that he is, when you talk about agriculture, there are other ways or other reasons why the land is getting degraded. Always we say farmer, but mining is happening in a very big manner. Okay. Vegetation loss is happening due to overgrazing. That also. When you remove the vegetation from the soil, then what will happen? The soil will become a desert. When all the vegetation is removed, why do we call a desert? Because you don't find vegetation there. So this kind of a thing, what we are currently facing is desertification. That, the reason could be, one of the reasons could be, as I said, mining is one reason. And so agriculture being a main reason where the farmer has got the capacity not only to degrade the land, but also he can restore the land. He is having the ability to restore the land, provided he follows some sustainable practices, agricultural practices like organic farming or natural farming or all these things. Only then he can put back those things which he is, mindlessly meddling with the soil.
It actually leads me into the next question, which in fact was now we kind of understand how and why it happens. But what can be done if we are talking about restoring land and preventing desertification from happening?
Yeah, one thing is we have to put back vegetation in a simple, child's language. I'm telling you, common language. So put back vegetation is what? As an individual, what can we do? We can do a lot of tree plantation. No, deforestation has led to this degradation. You do afforestation in a simple way. So if land is degrading because of the over excess use of the chemical fertilizers, you switch over to sustainable agriculture practices where the land can get back its, what it lost, its quality, the biological property of the land. That is, all the species that live in the land, if they are gone, then the land is a dead, that soil is a dead soil. And then the economic productivity of the land is lost. That's a big loss, huge loss. So, economically and biologically, and chemical properties are also lost. Chemical is the inherent, all the nutrients that are present in the soil. If it is gone, there is no use of that soil. So, in this way, the impact is more. And every year, a lot of land, lakhs of hectares of land are getting degraded. So, if that is going to continue, then it's going to hit your food security. If 30% you're losing land, just you can imagine how much of production will be a loss here.
You did mention about sustainable farming, and also at the start, you mentioned it's not just what is happening on top of the land, but what is also happening inside. And that is something which is very important. We see all these photos and videos, the before and after, and we probably don't consider what happens within the soil. Now, when we talk about restoration and even when we talk about sustainable farming, how does it work? And can you, from your experience, give us a few examples where sustainable farming has supported restoration and it basically has prevented desertification?
Yeah. So, when you add organic matter to the soil, it becomes more fertile. That is how we can restore the entire ecosystem of the soil. For example, when you put organic matter and stop putting the chemicals, naturally your biodiversity, that which has gone or exited from that land, will return to that land because that is ideal for them to grow and to thrive there. And you are also creating a congenial atmosphere for them with the right quality of the soil, with the quality. What I meant was the soil should be porous. It should have the capacity to absorb. So when it absorbs naturally, there is moisture, there is air because of the porous soil, and the biodiversity within the soil will thrive. Similarly, this biodiversity above the soil is also a very big, it's a matter of concern that we are losing a lot of biodiversity. If we have that, get them back like pollinators. If you spray a lot of chemical fertilizers and add a lot of chemicals to your land, nothing is going to come. Even snakes don't visit your farm. So how do you invite back all those pollinators and all the other biodiversity like the birds which help in the pest management? And there's so many things that if you bring back, you can bring back only when you switch over to chemical-free agriculture. So like this, you can restore by adding organic matter. And the organic farming or the natural farming, it advocates only addition of organic matter. They advocate it so much that, you have to go on adding organic matter to the soil in order to keep the soil fertility, soil health in perfect shape.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we often look at things in isolation, so we don't think about chemicals and we think about, or when it comes to land, and we don't think about pollinators, honeybees, the ecosystem around it. I think the focus sometimes is too isolated and specific on certain things. But like you said, it's all connected. It all comes back to, are you using chemicals? Are you doing it organically? And that way it restores the land and also the ecosystem around it. Now, you did mention climate change. You just now mentioned the soil and land being more porous. Of course, some of the benefits which I've read is, if it is porous, then you need less amount of tilling, so the soil structure remains intact. But I think the bigger benefit that comes from it is the impact it has on climate change, particularly taking in a lot of atmospheric carbon, which is also called carbon sequestration. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefit that a healthy land will have on the planet in itself and how it can have a positive impact on climate change?
So, as I discussed in my previous talks also, see, climate change and soil, they are very much closely connected. The more porous the soil is, the more healthy the soil is, the more organic matter you add to the soil, which makes it more porous and more healthy, then that kind of a soil has the ability to take on extreme weather conditions, whether it is a heavy rain, unseasonal rain, and you don't expect at that time with the standing crops in your farm and such rain, or there is no rain. In both the scenarios, the soil plays a very big role. So this soil, the quality of the soil, where the physical, the biological, and the chemical properties of the soil are intact, such a soil allows the plant to go far and wide. Its roots can reach to a far and wide and get the nutrition, what it needs, the nutrients and the water from a distance. But if you are going to add synthetic chemicals to the land and make it compact, then you cannot expect the soil to be very porous, the soil to be, congenial for these roots to go far and wide. When the roots reach out, then they get the nutrition, they get the water that is required for them to thrive. We have had one case study when we were doing a project in Kurnool in 2017. At that time, I could see very clearly there was an extended drought up to June, end of June, or even up to July, about 42 days drought, extended summer, and there were no rains. But we could see the plants which were cultivated under sustainable agriculture versus the one which were used, chemical fertilizers were used. We could see the sunflower blooming even without the water being given to it for 42 days, because that place where we had done this project was a rain-fed area. Rain-fed in the sense, when there is rain, only then you can do cultivation. There is no other source of water. Understood? There is no other way of irrigating your land. So they depend only on the rain. Now, when the rain don't start at time, or when the rain just starts and then stops for a long period of time, and then later on it picks up, even then it is a very difficult situation for the farmers. So when they sow and they wait, and I could see the difference that those being cultivated under sustainable agriculture, they could thrive and they could flower, whereas those under chemical fertilizer agriculture or conventional farming, they could not bloom because there was lack of water. And not only that, we could see another scenario where there was heavy rain and untimely rain when the crops were there in the month of November, and they were about to be harvested by Jan or February. Then this rain disrupted everything. But conventional farmers had a very big loss, whereas the farmers practicing the sustainable agriculture, they could retrieve because the soil was so porous, it allowed the water to percolate and the plants could get back to its normal within few hours. So this kind of case studies we have had enough now, because we started way back in 2009. We have been seeing, but at least the government has focused from 2014 onwards, 15 onwards. And they have also recorded many such cases where they have seen how sustainable agriculture behaves, how the soil quality improves under sustainable agriculture. So all this affects the crop production. So when crop production is your food security again. So all this, when you see, ultimately we can deduce that the quality of the soil is the key to combat climate change. Or you can say this is a climate smart agriculture, or it is climate resilient. It is drought resilient as well as flood resilient, both. So that means it is climate resilient.
Can you also tell us how it impacts absorbing the atmospheric carbon when it comes to having a healthy soil?
Yeah. See, let me take you back to that Calcutta thing. After water bodies, the land is the second very big body which can sequester carbon. Okay. So now you imagine a compact soil. When air cannot percolate, forget about carbon, nitrogen, all that. And you imagine a porous soil where air percolates, circulates and water percolates, then it's a simple thing. Anybody can understand that when the air goes inside, carbon dioxide goes inside, right? And plants are the big, they aid in this carbon sequestration. How they take in the atmospheric carbon and they make their own food. How photosynthesis happen. They take in carbon dioxide, water, and in the presence of sunlight, they prepare the food. So they are constantly observing. But what is happening right now? Human intervention is so much that we are losing out on, a lot of deforestation is happening. We are cutting down trees. Urban expansion is happening. We want to make all, villas and high-rise buildings everywhere. We don't want to maintain that ecosystem. We want to go on tinkering with this. All this is only hindering that process. So you have less trees to sequester carbon. You have less, porous land or porous soil to absorb. Then how do we expect? So we should be mindful when we are developing. We should also have that awareness not to tinker with the ecosystem or restore it. Simultaneously, keep restoring it. You should have a sustainable development.
From your experience, can you also tell how some of the restoration projects happen, whether it is governments, NGOs, corporate CSRs? Any example that you would like to share with us as to how this happens and basically taking us behind the scenes of some of these initiatives?
Okay. Now, for example, you take this World Environment Day. This has been going on from 1972. Initially, it was conceived by the UN, and then 1974, first time the World Environment Day, we started celebrating. From then onwards, every year we have had some theme going on, and focusing on some part of the environment, how to restore it. So constantly our effort has been like this globally. Okay. And then the governments take in, some of the governments will, like how we have done no to plastic sometimes back. And sometimes back, China had taken over something else. So like that today, we see the Saudi Arabia hosting this World Environment Day, which is our land, our future, or the land restoration, desertification, and ecosystem restoration. So all these things, some global body, when it takes it up, and then the governments adopt it, and there is a push from the government, then what happens is the rest of the organizations, agencies, they all would like to be a part of it. They are supposed to be a part of it. So that is how the NGOs, the CSR activities, the corporates, they engage through CSR activities. Some of them they do on their own. Some of them they engage their employees to be a part of it. And some of the things, the government initiates and gets it done. For example, I have had an experience, as you also know, and when the Telangana government first formed in 2014, they brought in that greening Telangana. So that was under that Harita Haram. So Harita Haram program was initially because it was a government push, all the NGOs, all the corporates, everybody got together. And it was an every year event, annual event that everybody would get together, do a lot of tree plantation. And sometimes we would find tree planted over a tree. So, over enthusiastic about the initiative. So that when there is a push from the government, then naturally everybody comes about. Some NGOs, they engage in certain initiatives which they think that it's a core principle that they are following, or they're under their mission, vision, something. So they bring in, and every year they do, whether the government supports them, doesn't support them, whether globally it is wanted or not wanted, but some sustainable practices they keep doing. That is another thing. Third thing is, under the Ministry of Environment, they have some protocols. They have to do certain things. Whether it is declared under UN Environment Day or not, they have, as per the national, priorities as per the nation, they have. So these are all various things that are there. But then they also engage with the NGOs, because ultimately NGOs are the ones who are with the grassroots level people who work with the people, right? So there is a government machinery, there is a corporate funding, then we have the NGOs, all of us together. We work on a particular initiative. Now, if we take this year land restoration, desertification and drought resilience, now all of us, you will find all of us again working on these things. Then the corporates will be funding, and we will take it down to the grassroots level people. Now, in Telangana Ko Haritaharam, what has happened is, as you observed, we from Art of Living, we did about 3 lakh tree plantation in Hyderabad in 3 hours. But there was a lot of preparation going on behind the scenes. Only what was visible was that day event and how it was done in record time, that you could see. But behind the scene, there's so much of the thing. One is, we had to take acquire some land where we can do such a huge tree plantation. So it was about 250 acres of land that we had got, and that was given by us because that land was with the endowments department. And then secondly, we had to get the plants, and that was supplied by the government. Because it was a government initiative, they had set up a lot of nurseries all over the state, and every district headquarter had huge nurseries to supply, and they were told to supply. So we only had to approach with a letter to the government or to the GHMC or to the HMDA, under which the jurisdiction under which we fall, and also involve all the other agencies, NGOs, district collector. Then, sometimes we even engage with GHMC workers. So like this, it is not as a single person doing, to be very frank. Maybe the ideas will flow from few people, and ultimately some of them will get into execution of this. But ultimately, when you roll out the thing, it is the collective, initiative by everybody's participation, collective participation, I can say. So in my case, I can recall very clearly what had happened was, after we did all the initial writing to the government, getting the thing, being a part of it, and then getting permissions, then the ultimate tree plantation of 3 lakh plants at a time, that had to happen was, we needed a lot of manpower. And that manpower, how to get that manpower? So I went to all the colleges. I requested the heads of the colleges, please send your students for being a part of it. Then I had approached the district collector, who had instructed his education department to send children. So like this, from the university, our Hyderabad University, people came, and everybody, participated. So we had about 6,000 people doing it. And it happened in a jiffy. In 1 hour, when they were counting how many plants we had done, we had already done 120,000. And second hour, we had to, be very mindful about how we were reporting. Under-reporting we did, because the third hour we had to report something. So by the end of the third hour, actually it was end of 2.5 hours, we had finished the 3 lakh tree plantation. It's because of the collective participation. So all these happen at the back end. This is how it happens. So these are the things behind the scene, one such thing. But there are such many projects we have across the country where any initiative, now we are taking up tree plantation right from 5th of June to our Guru Purnima, somewhere in July. So during this time, we are going to do a lot of tree plantation. As you know, I've already been approached by our people in Hyderabad, which they asked me to guide them. Yeah, I'm open to that too. So it's like this.
So these are some very large scale initiatives. And of course, you had to pull in a lot of different stakeholders. Many people were involved. And if we talk about individuals or at any level, actually, there are a lot of initiatives available. We can have start with those conversations, bring more awareness. School syllabus and curriculums also see a change happening. You see a lot of children involved. And of course, you have a lot of resources from the United Nations website as well. So there are many things that we can do when it comes to this particular theme. And we can also be more conscious about our purchases and what we are buying, the food, the produce, where it is sourced, and just be more aware. And one really good thing about this theme is that, and something that you mentioned at the start, now we see a lot of sustainable initiatives. We often think about tree planting, we see photos and videos about it. But when we talk about land, it quite literally is not just what we see on the surface, but it is going under the surface, restoring that biodiversity and having a much larger impact that we don't often see in the before and after photos. So it's not just what happens on the surface, it is also what happens inside the land as well, and how the entire ecosystem can be restored. So a lot of wonderful things happening, a lot of great initiatives happening. And we also will be talking about specific initiatives that we've been part of that can be shared with others. Maybe you can get some inspiration from it. And you can always watch some of our earlier podcasts and videos over here as well. So with that, we are closing out this edition. Thank you so much for listening. Do drop in your comments and initiatives that you are part of and what you have done. And together we can bring in a positive change. Thank you so much for listening. This is Going Easy on Earth.